Here is something every doctor, every teacher, every parent has told you. Your feelings come from your brain. Your anxiety lives in your brain. Your mood is controlled by your brain. When something is wrong emotionally, you fix the brain. That is the model. That is the assumption. That is what every antidepressant, every therapy session, every self-help book is built on. But scientists found something that breaks that model completely. In 1996, a neuroscientist at Columbia University was laughed out of academic conferences for suggesting that your gut, your digestive system, contains its own independent brain. Not a metaphor, not a figure of speech, a literal second brain. With 500 million neurons, producing the same chemicals as the brain in your skull, sending and receiving the same signals, capable of thinking, sensing, and reacting without your brain's permission. And here is the part that is going to change everything you think you know about your moods, your anxiety, your gut feelings, and your decisions. 90% of the communication between your gut and your brain travels in one direction. Upward. From gut to brain, not from brain to gut. Your brain is not running your gut. Your gut is running your brain. By the end of this video, you will never think about where your emotions come from the same way again. But before we get to the science, I need to tell you about a woman named Sophie, because what happened to her is the most important case study in the history of gut-brain research, and nobody talks about it. Dr. Michael Gershon, Columbia University, 1996 to 1998. Sophie was 34 years old when the anxiety started. Not the ordinary kind. Not the kind you shake off with a run or a good night's sleep. Every morning she woke up with a knot in her stomach, so tight she could not eat. Her heart raced constantly. She could not concentrate. Her doctors tried 3 different antidepressants over 2 years. Each one helped a little. None of them fixed it. Here is what her doctors were not looking at. Sophie had been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome at age 22, chronic gut inflammation, bloating, pain. For 12 years, her gastroenterologist treated her gut. Her psychiatrist treated her brain. Neither one talked to the other. Neither one connected the two. Then Sophie ended up at Johns Hopkins, one of the world's leading medical institutions, where a research team was studying something radical. They were studying whether gut inflammation could cause anxiety and depression, not just accompany it, cause it. What they found changed Sophie's life, and it should change yours. The researchers discovered that when Sophie's gut was inflamed, it was sending constant distress signals up the vagus nerve directly to her brain. Not occasionally, constantly, 24 hours a day. Her brain was receiving a fire alarm it could not silence, because the fire was not in her brain. The fire was in her gut. Within 6 months of treating Sophie's gut inflammation directly, changing her diet, rebalancing her microbiome, her anxiety reduced by more than 60%, without changing her psychiatric medication, without years of additional therapy. Sophie's psychiatrist had been treating the alarm system. Nobody had found the fire. And this is not a one-off story. This is what the science has been trying to tell us for decades, starting with one man who almost nobody believed. But Sophie's case is just the beginning. Because what Dr. Michael Gershon discovered at Columbia University in 1996 turned everything medicine thought it knew about the brain upside down. Stay with me. In 1996, Dr. Michael Gershon walked into his office at Columbia University and started writing a book his colleagues thought would end his academic career. The book was called The Second Brain. His claim? The gut contains its own independent nervous system, the enteric nervous system, capable of operating completely without input from the brain. The scientific establishment laughed. The idea that digestion required its own neural intelligence was considered fringe, embarrassing even. They were wrong, and the proof was more shocking than anyone expected. Here is what Gershon's research actually showed. Your digestive tract, from esophagus to rectum, is lined with two thin sheaths of neurons. Scientists call this the enteric nervous system, the ENS. And when you count those neurons, the number is staggering. 500 million nerve cells. Let me put that in perspective. Your spinal cord, the main information superhighway of your entire body, contains fewer neurons than your gut. Your gut has more neural firepower than the brain of most mammals on Earth. Julia Kaltschmidt, associate professor of neurosurgery at Stanford Medicine, confirmed what Gershon had suspected. The enteric nervous system is so complete, so sophisticated, that it can function with zero input from the brain. Her team removed a gut from a living mouse, placed it in a nutrient solution, and kept it alive in a dish. And the gut kept working. It sensed its environment. It contracted rhythmically. It processed information. It communicated. Without a brain, without a spinal cord, without any central nervous system at all. Your gut does not need your brain's permission to do what it does. It is its own intelligence system, and it has been operating that way for your entire life, while your conscious mind had absolutely no idea. But here is where the real myth-busting begins, because the biggest assumption in modern medicine is about to collapse. We knew the gut had neurons. What nobody expected was the direction the signals were traveling. What scientists found next destroyed decades of medical assumption. Stay with me. For the last 100 years of medicine, the assumption was simple. The brain sends signals down to the gut. Brain is boss, gut follows orders. When you are stressed, your brain tells your gut to tighten. When you are nervous, your brain sends the butterflies. Brain speaks, gut listens. Then researchers actually measured the nerve fibers in the vagus nerve, the primary communication highway between gut and brain. What they found stopped them cold. 90% of the nerve fibers in the vagus nerve carry signals from gut to brain. Not from brain to gut, from gut to brain. Your brain is not issuing orders to your gut. Your gut is reporting intelligence to your brain. Your gut is the senior partner. Your brain is receiving the data. And it gets more disturbing. Because here is the myth that every single antidepressant ever prescribed is based on. Serotonin, the primary feel-good chemical, is produced in the brain. Low serotonin equals depression. Fix the brain chemistry and the mood improves. This is the foundation of psychiatric medicine for the last 50 years. 95% of your body's serotonin is produced in your gut, not your brain, in your gut. 95%. Johns Hopkins Medicine published research showing that irritation in the gastrointestinal system sends signals to the central nervous system that trigger mood changes, not the other way around. Gut distress first, depression and anxiety second. We have been treating depression as a brain problem for 50 years. We have prescribed hundreds of billions of dollars of medications targeting brain chemistry. And the science is now showing that 95% of the chemical those medications target is manufactured not in the brain, but in the organ we told patients to ignore. Sophie's doctors were not bad doctors. They were working from the best available model. The model was wrong. But here is where the story gets even more extraordinary. Because in 2026, researchers at one of America's top universities ran an experiment that should have made international headline. In January 2026, Professor Katie Amato at Northwestern University published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, one of the most rigorous scientific journals on Earth. The experiment was deceptively simple, and the results were extraordinary. Amato's team took gut microbes, the billions of bacteria living in the digestive systems, from 3 different primate species: humans, squirrel monkeys, and macaques. Then they implanted those microbes into laboratory mice that had been raised in sterile conditions with no gut bacteria of their own at all. Completely blank gut microbiomes, ready to be written on. Then they waited 8 weeks. At the end of 8 weeks, they did not just test digestion. They scanned the mice's brains. The mice that received human gut microbes developed human-like patterns of brain gene expression. The mice that received squirrel-monkey gut microbes developed squirrel-monkey patterns. The mice that received macaque gut microbes developed macaque patterns. 8 weeks. Just gut bacteria. Brain identity changed. The researchers were measuring genes associated with energy production in the brain, synaptic plasticity, the physical process that underlies all learning and memory, and neural connectivity. All of it changed by changing what lived in the gut. Now think about what this means for you. Not for mice, for you. Right now, the trillions of bacteria living in your gut are producing neurotransmitters, chemical messengers that cross into your bloodstream and travel directly to your brain. Every single day. Every single hour. Those bacteria are influenced by what you eat, what you drink, how much you sleep, how much stress you are carrying, whether you have been on antibiotics recently. You are not just eating for energy. You are not just eating for your waistline. Every meal you eat is a message to your brain. And here is the clinical proof that this is not theoretical. A meta-analysis published in 2024 reviewed 23 separate clinical trials on probiotics, supplements that support healthy gut bacteria, and their effect on mental health. The finding was not mild. It was significant. Probiotics significantly reduced symptoms of both depression and anxiety across all 23 trials. Not slightly reduced, significantly reduced. Sophie's doctors finally had the answer that had been in her gut the entire time. But the gut brain does not just affect your mood. It affects something even more personal: the split-second decisions you make every day. What neuroscientists discovered about gut feelings next is the most practically useful thing in this entire video. Stay with me. We need to talk about gut feelings, because the way we talk about them, as though they are soft, irrational, unreliable, is one of the most damaging myths in modern thinking. Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California developed what he called the somatic marker hypothesis. His research showed that the body, specifically the gut, stores emotional memories as physical sensations. When you face a decision, your gut retrieves those stored emotional experiences and communicates them back to your brain as physical feeling, before your conscious mind has time to analyze anything. Your enteric nervous system processes environmental information, microexpressions, chemical signals in the air, subtle changes in tone, body language cues, patterns in behavior, all below the level of conscious awareness. Faster than thought, faster than language. And then it sends that processed intelligence directly up the vagus nerve to your brain. By the time you feel uneasy, your gut already knew. By the time you feel excited about an opportunity, your gut already voted. By the time you consciously decide to trust someone, or not trust them, your second brain has already run a full analysis. This is not mysticism. This is not pseudoscience. This is the biological architecture of a 500 million neuron intelligence system that evolved over hundreds of millions of years, specifically to keep you alive. Think about this carefully. Think about every time you ignored a gut feeling. The job offer that felt wrong in the interview but looked perfect on paper. The relationship your gut said no to, but your brain justified with reasons. The decision you made logically that something in you quietly resisted. How many of those times did the gut turn out to be right? We live in a world that celebrates logic and dismisses instinct, that demands data and ignores sensation, that treats the body as a vehicle for the brain, not as a source of intelligence in its own right. The science says we have it backwards. Your gut has been thinking since before you were born. The enteric nervous system is one of the most ancient neural systems in evolutionary history. It existed in organisms long before the brain and the skull evolved. It is older, faster, and in certain domains, more accurate than conscious thought. You were never taught to listen to it. That stops today. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because information without application is just entertainment. Here are 4 science-backed ways to work with your second brain starting today. Empowering. Warm authority. Northwestern University Study 2026. Gut changes brain in 8 weeks 2024. Meta-analysis 23. Trials. Probiotics reduce depression/anxiety. Here is what the science actually tells you to do. 4 things, all of them backed by the research we just covered. First, start thinking of food as brain programming. The Northwestern 2026 study proved that changing your gut microbiome changes your brain gene expression in 8 weeks. 8 weeks! Every meal is not just fuel. It is a signal sent directly to the organ that runs your emotional life. Fermented foods, yogurt, kimchi, kefir. High-fiber vegetables, diversity. More species of bacteria in your gut correlates directly with better mental health outcomes. Start there. Second, stop dismissing gut feelings as irrational. Start treating them as data. Your enteric nervous system has processed information your conscious mind has not yet accessed. Before every significant decision this week, before you analyze, before you reason, pause for 30 seconds. What does your body feel? Not what do you think. What do you feel? Write it down. Then make the decision. Then write down what happened. Over time, you will learn when your gut is signaling something real and when it is just hunger. Third, if you are struggling with anxiety or depression that has not responded fully to treatment, ask your doctor about your gut. Ask specifically about gut inflammation, microbiome testing, and the gut-brain connection. You are not a patient who is being difficult. You are a patient who has read the 2026 research. Sophie waited 12 years. You do not have to. Fourth, protect the stress loop. Chronic stress floods your system with cortisol. Cortisol destroys gut bacteria. Destroyed gut bacteria reduce serotonin production. Reduced serotonin darkens your mood. Darker mood creates more stress. It is a loop. And every point where you interrupt it, sleep, movement, real food, genuine rest, you are not just managing stress. You are maintaining the biological infrastructure of your emotional life. Your gut has been thinking since before you were born. Maybe it is time you started listening. Next week, we go to McGill University. In the year 2000, a neuroscientist named Dr. Kareem Nader ran a single experiment that broke 100 years of neuroscience. He proved that your brain can physically rewire itself, not in years of therapy, not slowly over a lifetime, in 21 days. The implications for who you are allowed to become are more radical than anything we have covered yet. Subscribe now.